Hey, Glenn, welcome to the show.
Hi, Jeff. Thanks for asking me on.
So,
Great to be here.
Jordan had a good point. How late are you staying up to be on the
Oh,
show?
it's not too late. You can see the sun is still out. It's 8 p.m. Well, yeah, 8:34 p.m. in Ireland here. So I'm in Dublin, in Ireland.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us. Can you go ahead and quickly introduce yourself to the audience?
Hi, folks. I'm Glenn Holmes. I'm a principal product manager at Amazon Simple Email Service, so Amazon SES. So SES is a scalable, flexible, so it's cost-effective cloud email service provider. And what that is, it allows people like digital marketers, application developers to, send email via their applications. So either mobile applications, on-prem applications, applications hosted on AWS. If your application needs to send email, you use SES. And we actually also receive email as well. So we're an inbound email service as well as an outbound email service.
Gotcha. So I know most people in IT are familiar with how important sometimes a dedicated IP can be. So whether you're running a server or a web server, or we all know our cable modems or our home internet normally has the IPs change all the time. So,
Mm-hmm.
but I never really think of dedicated IPs with email. So can you fill us in on how important that is?
Sure. Well, email is inherently tied to the TCP/IP protocol, right? So every email that's ever been sent over an IP. If you if you sign up for an ESP today, an email service provider, right? Um, uh, as a organization to send email, such a service such as SES, by default you send over what we call a shared IP pool, and that's that is perfectly fine for most organizations or a lot of organizations. And what that means is that you're sending over an IP that's shared by customer A, customer B, customer G, customer Z. Okay, and that's fine, as I say. But I suppose the kind of fundamental reason you send an email is that it gets read by the recipient, right? That's pretty obvious,
That's the
and
goal.
that's the goal, right? Yet,
Ideally.
you know, ideally, but how much email do you have to go to your junk folder? So a lot of email goes to junk folder. It doesn't go to inboxes. So what we call it, your deliverability, that's measured. The deliverability is the measurement of inbox placement. So organizations want to obviously send email to get to an inbox. Now you can do it over shared IPs, that's fine. And our deliverability rates on shared IPs are really good. But because you're sharing with other customers, no matter how good your sending is, so if you've got best practices like you're opting in, your you've opt-in, list management, you've highly engaged content, all those best practices that you apply to email to get to inboxes. If someone else sending on that shared network is not as good as you,
Yep.
your sending reputation won't be as good. And why that is because receiving ISPs, so like Gmail, Yahoo, Comcast, all these ISPs that receive the email, they look at the IP that the email has been sent from, and if that's good quality email and as I apply best practices are applied to it, it routes it to an inbox. If it's not, it goes to junk folders. So on a shared IP, you don't own your reputation because it could be at the whim of another sender.
Right.
So therefore, to organizations that really are brand aware, like, and you got to want to protect their brand and want it, and email is a high ROI. It's for every dollar you spend, it's between 38 and 41 dollars in return. So
Mm.
that's when people open the email. So organizations want to get their email to the recipient's inbox, and they do that by using dedicated IPs. So dedicated IPs, as the name suggests, it's dedicated to you. You own the IPs. There is no other sender on that. It is just yours.
Gotcha.
That's
So did SES already have a feature for dedicated IPs?
Yes, it does. So we have a dedicated IPs and a very popular feature that many of our customers use, particularly like large brands that really want to protect their reputation, have dedicated IPs. I suppose the problem with dedicated IPs is that if there's heavy lifting required to have a dedicated IP. What I mean by that is that you've got to go and request these IPs. You've got to know how many you need, right? So you got to look at the volume of sending. You got to do this math to say I probably need 100 IPs, 10 IPs, 20 IPs, and even that math is quite flawed because you're guessing a lot of the time. Then when you
And
get them,
and
yes, you're good.
I imagine you need multiple IPs because certain email recipients limit the number of a number of emails per IP address. Is that kind of what you're getting at?
Exactly. So and that's on a per ISP basis again. So Gmail might limit it to a certain amount of capacity per day that will allow to be sent from an IP. Yahoo might be different, Comcast different. Each one, and they have their own philosophies and their own models around how they measure. But you can increase that capacity, right? And that's so there's a trust relationship between the IP and the receiving ISP. And if you continue to send good, emails that's highly engaged, again, good practice, that capacity will increase and increase in that IP. But no one knows, well, until now, no one really knew. Okay, and that's what I'll talk about in a moment. Just
Foreshadowing.
what that capacity was. So people guessed. So what you would do is you get it in IP and you'd say, 100 IPs based on my volume, and then you would send, and you'd send, you would say, I'll send. If you try to send, say you have a million emails a day, you try to send them over 100 IPs because you think that's enough. The issue is actually on the receiving ISP, because those IPs are brand new. They've no reputation. They're not recognized. So the ISPs and the receiving end will say, I'm only allowing, say, 500 emails a day from those at the beginning, right? So you try to send a million. What happens is that they go, whoa, looks like a spammer. This is not good. You're trying to overload me. I don't like those IPs. So they don't build up reputation. They can end up getting blocked. And that's really what you don't want to do. So to counter that, and this is what we call warming up, an email, a sender will say, I'm only going to send 500 in day one through each IP, okay? Because I know they'll accept around 500, or I think they'll accept around 500. And then day two, I'll do 1,000. And then day three, I'll do 5,000. And day four, and etc. Because the capacity will continue to increase. So you've got to put that logic in your system. You've got to create queues. You've got to send batches through, and you could still
spend time planning that out. And
yeah.
I mean, this because this is your field, but someone learning this would probably have to figure this out on the fly, kind of look at past data and spend a lot of time figuring all that out.
Yeah,
dynamically changing based on what the email service providers are trying to do.
Exactly. Like, and no one, and they don't know what the email service providers are trying to do, what the receiving ESPs are doing. They don't know the capacity. So you could oversend and get into trouble by sending too much, and you can undersend, which means you're not building reputation on those IPs, because you build reputation by sending a volume. They take that sample, analyze it. It's good email. Then they increase. And then they increase. So they want to see these sample sizes coming in.
And it seems like it might be a little bit dangerous, because once you lose reputation, that IP might be not good for a while. So
no, that IP goes on a block list, and and not just on not if one ASP decides, I'm going to block that. That goes on a block list. Other ESPs will see that IP and go, well, we're blocking it too. So you really don't want to get onto a block list on your IPs.
So what's this new feature with SES that's going to make this a lot easier for our customers?
So dedicated IPs managed takes away all of that complexity, abstracts that all away, and basically sends your email for you and manages all that complexity for you. And I'll say, so basically when you onboard and you'd say, here's 1 million emails, go and send them. What dedicated IPs managed does is it actually does know the receiving capacity of each ISP that's in your list. So take, for a simple purpose, you've got a list of 1 million and 600,000 of them are going to Gmail, 400,000 are going to Yahoo. Say, simple. That's unrealistic, but for example, it knows that on day one, right, Yahoo might accept 500. Gmail might accept, because Gmail might say, oh, I'll accept 1,000 because it's an Amazon SES IP. It's generally good. It's reputable. What it does is it actually sends that capacity to the receiving ISP, and all of the excess capacity it routes through our shared IP network. This is when it's warming up. So what the receiving ISP seek? Okay, great. They've sent the exact amount we want. It's good content. Obviously, if it's still up to you to send good content. We can't, dictate that. But if it's good, then day two they go, okay, we're going to increase that capacity. The ISPs will do that, and then on day two, when you go to send again, or whatever, day three, basically that increased capacity. Again, we send it, and any excess we start to route, and we continue to do that until we get 100% of your email through dedicated IPs. And then what happens after that is that you continue sending, and we continue sending it through dedicated IPs. There's no work required from you. You just onboard and say, there you go, send it. Okay. Now, if it comes later on and you have a spike and you start to grow more, you start to send, what dedicated IPs manages, it starts to allocate the required IPs that you need. So you don't have to monitor and say, oh God, I need another 10 IPs, I need 5 IPs. You don't have to worry about any of that. It automatically scales up your IP fleet based on the traffic that you have, the volume you have, and the receiving ISPs you send to. So it does all this complex work that you're talking about that's really hard,
Right.
and it abstracts that all away and sends for you. And that's the kind of the magic, I suppose, of what
Yeah.
dedicated IPs manages.
Can you show us kind of how this looks in the console? Like, can you walk us
Sure.
through what a customer would do to do managed IPs, dedicated IPs managed?
I can indeed. I'm just going to show you one here.
Dedicated IPs managed DIP'em. I guess that's how you would.
Sorry, my console just expired the session. Sorry. So usually, yeah, it's fine. Usually when you come into to acquire a dedicated IP, right? You come into your dedicated IP space, which is in the Amazon SES console. You'll see on the left there's a dedicated IPs link.
Actually, I'm not seeing your screen yet.
Oh,
is our producers? Can we pop up Glenn's screen?
There we go.
Yep, perfect. Continue. Sorry about that, Glenn.
No, that's fine. That's fine. So you see in the Amazon SES console, you'll see a link on the left to dedicated IPs. And in that, you've got, now you can have both standard and managed dedicated IPs. It's not exclusive that you have to use one or the other. And lots of customers we have mix those two. But traditionally on a standard IP, when you had to request to add one, you would go and what we call request a standard dedicated IP. And what that did, it sent the message off to our team, and you'd have to tell them why you want it and how many you want. So all that complex math I talked about, you'd have to kind of do that for yourself and figure out, I need 20 maybe, can I have them? And you'd get them, and then you'd have to put them in your pools, and you'd have to manage them yourself. So all of that is now, the ability to do that is all done in one click. And this is where you just enable dedicated IPs and you go and you create a managed IP pool. So what is an IP pool? Essentially, an IP pool is just where I'm going to send to and where the IPs get allocated to, right? And I'll explain a little bit more about that as we go through the demo. But you choose your scaling mode, you give it a name, and you might call it Glenn On Air. Okay. Oh, I think sorry, let's be it's lowercase only. Sorry for this. And the main thing about this is that you choose a configuration set. So if you know configuration set literally is it allows you to group identity or identities together. So sending identity. So if it's glenn.com, glennholmes.com, or mail.glennholmes.com, or no reply at glennholmes, or whatever, group them together and into a configuration set. It does many more things, but for the purpose of dedicated IPs, and all mail that comes from those domains get routed through this configuration set or grouped into this configuration set. So what I do is I associate that. So say I take Glenn's marketing or Acme. So in this case, or Glenn's marketing config set. So what I've done there is that the reason that config sets are good, you might segment your marketing, your transactional email. And what I mean by that is that transaction email is like order receipts, shipping, notifications, all those things. And they're highly engaged emails because we get a receipt and we open it, or we get a shipping notification and we open it. And they get high deliverability, high engaged, and you want them to go to inboxes. Marketing is your offers, your newsletters. So they sometimes can get marked as junk. So they might have not have as high an engagement or reputation rate. So if you segment the two, what that means is that you keep your good reputation from your transactional, that it goes to inbox, and you route your marketing through a separate IP pool. So you don't share the IPs again between even your marketing and your transactional email. That just helps to improve deliverability for each, or for particularly on transactional, and not diminish it by maybe marketing not being as good. So in this case, I'm just going to do marketing and I create the pool. Now, Jeff, what that's done essentially is all of the work I talked about.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
That is now sending email in a managed pool. So if I'm sending email on my glennholmes.com domain, right, via SES, that is now being sent through a managed pool. And what's happening now is that the algorithms in the background have kicked off, and they're gonna monitor the amount of mail I'm sending, and they're gonna figure out how many IPs do you need based on the volume of your sending and the patterns of your sending. And then it's going to do what I talked about, where it's going to only route the right capacity to each ISP I send to. So all of that is happening in the background. And that's just done by creating this pool. So it's abstracted away all of that complexity. Okay. And that's how easy really it is to onboard to this. Okay. So next up, and this is something we've released recently, is to understand what is happening actually in the background.
Well, yeah, I was about to ask, is it
Yeah.
set it and forget it, or do you have to monitor it? Or I think you might be kind of transitioning to that.
Yeah. And like we would say, yes, send and forget, right? But you know, we're all human, right? We
Sure.
kind of go,
Yeah.
we love AWS, we trust you guys, but we'd like to see what's going on, right?
Right.
So that's just a natural thing, right? So if I come into, this is actually a because I've just sent, I don't have data, and obviously I wouldn't show any live production data. So this is just an illustration, like a mock-up of what it looks like. So when I go into, if I come back to my previous screen, actually, here, if I just show you this one, if I click into the IP pool, you'll see here there's nothing happening because I've no sending, right? I've not sent anything. So it tells me there's insufficient volume for IP. So I'm not sending, so it's not going to give me an IP because there's no values. But in an actual account where we look, where what you'd see is you would see a status saying it's sending through dedicated IPs. So it's telling you that it's happening in the background. You're starting to be, you've been allocated your first dedicated IP. Okay, at least one. There's more sending. It's telling me my daily volume. So that's being sent through dedicated IPs. So how much is actually gone through my dedicated IPs? 1.28 million. And how much of that, of all my sending, is being routed through dedicated IPs? Because remember, at the beginning, we'll spill over into shared. Because we want to keep the continuity. We don't want you to be throttled. We don't want you to be queued. We want to say, if you tell us send 1 million emails, we'll send them. We'll send what we can through dedicated and the balance through shared until eventually you reach full dedicated. And this is kind of what this graph here is explaining. So at the very beginning of May 25th, you'll see there's a high amount in shared because I had no reputation on my IPs. Okay. So once I start to build up reputation, you'll see the capacity starts to grow. So it starts to get a little bit higher here in this blue graph. It's continuously increasing, and the amount that's going through shared starts to drop because there's more and more going through dedicated until eventually they both converge. And now you see that from May 28th that there's nothing going through my no, not through shared, and the entire sending is going through managed. So it's giving
And
you
this happens automatically, Glenn.
automatically. You don't have to do anything. So like, I mean, so many of our customers have, complex lambdas in place for queuing mechanisms, or to call batch APIs to send. They have to schedule 500 day one, as I say, 1,000 day two, and it's all guessing. So what we're doing is we're actually, we know the capacity of the receiving ISPs, and we send basically based on that capacity. And you'll see here that this is just the percentage. So it's just a different inverse of this graph, different dimension of this graph, should say, where that's the percentage that's going to be shared. So you see it's creeping up all the time until we get entirely into shared. And what's a really interesting one here is we give you on the top ISPs, top 10 ISPs, we give you the capacity. So this is illustrative of what I said about only sending the capacity that they will accept. So you'll see on May 25th, the capacity here for Gmail was, maybe around 40K there. So we only sent that much. That's all that got sent, right? And as you see, and what you're seeing here is the reputation growing, because if that's going up, it means that the receiving capacity, Gmail is trusting the email. It's increasing the capacity. Your email is good. So you can track that, okay, if this is going down at some point, okay, I have a problem here with my sending. It could be my content. It could be, I'm sending bad emails, or have very low engagement, etc. But you'll see that this is trending in a good direction. We're receiving, and what's really interesting about this is that you can see these red blocks are how much I sent. So you can see you've actually got contingency in there. Okay, so there's a gap between the capacity and what I'm sending. So I know that if I slightly increase my sending, that there's a bit of capacity on Gmail. And if I go into other ISPs, I can view this and say, okay, now the system in the backend, you still don't have to really worry about that, because the system in the backend, what it does, that the minute it sees these bars converging around here, it starts to, again, remember, it's allocating IPs to you because it knows your near capacity. So the magic in the background will go, you need more IPs, here's another IP, and then it starts that warm up process again. So it's always trying to keep ahead of your sending pattern. So if you're growing, somebody's, day 1 sending X, day 2 sending a little bit more, day 3 sending more, etc. The system automatically understands that pattern and allocates the right number of IPs for you. You can see here I sent a little less, so my capacity probably drops a little here. So you can see the kind of the logic behind the ISPs, and that's on all the major ISPs. You'll see on Hotmail it's the same thing. I've sent just under capacity here, and then I've stayed under. So that's what we're saying. We're never ever going to compromise the reputation of the IP by over sending emails to the receiving ISP. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I've been thinking that it's almost like your credit score, and the service is helping you build the credit for this IP address with all of the email service providers or the recipients. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
I was so we had a question from Anar asking, is there any AI involved in this? How is it figuring this stuff out?
It's well, it's not any really magic AI. It's just basically feedback loops that we have with the receiving ESPs. So we're able to query the capacity. We're able to get that feedback. So there's a lot of complexity in the algorithm around how we allocate the IPs and how we look at the sending patterns, and and that's constantly learning and getting better.
Gotcha.
And it's something we do have in our minds about. We can obviously improve this, get better by maybe leveraging some AI, but at the moment it would be AI for AI's sake. What the complexity of the algorithms we have does the majority of work that or all the work that previously had to be done.
Gotcha. Awesome. So how can customers, I mean, beyond going to the console and looking into this, is there any resources that you would point customers to learn more about the new feature?
Yeah, there's the Amazon SES homepage. If you go there, you'll see features and you can read all about managed our dedicated IPs managed. We've recently published 2 blogs about this to kind of give you a little bit more information on those. They're on our blog site on Amazon SES site. So I've got the links. I can get the links and post them. But it's
we'll have those posted in the chat section. So awesome.
Yeah. So lots of resources here. One thing I would add is that, and this is a question that comes up a lot in my, is that people often ask, can you switch between? So I've already gotten standard, dedicated IP standard.
Oh yeah, right.
I'm using them, and this is really cool. So what can I do to can I leverage this? Okay, and the answer is yes, you can. And I will show you how to do that. If just in one, if we've time. If we come into dedicated IPs, you'll see I've got standard IP pool here.
Yeah.
And it's in a marketing pool. And how you simply do that is there's an option here to convert to manage pool.
Oh, nice.
So when you convert, now you get a bit of information because there are differences, and we don't want to surprise people. So one thing, the couple of differences is that the pricing model is different. So with dedicated IPs, you lease them. So based on how many IPs you say you need, you lease them. With dedicated IPs managed, you pay per email sent. So there's a usage metric in it. So basically, and there is an account. There's a $50 account fee, and then you pay per email. And actually, the more you send, the less you pay because it's a tiered pricing model. So if you send more, it becomes cheaper. So economies of scale really work on this. A lot of the time for certain customers, it's actually much more cost convenient to use managed. So it's an interest, and we do have a pricing calculator again on the Amazon SES site that you can check this out for. One thing as well, just to be caveat, is that if a lot of people use dedicated IPs for allow lists. So you have a downstream system that only is allowed to receive email from a specific IP. The nature of our dynamic allocation means we will give you IPs, but if your sending drops really low and you have too many IPs, you don't need the IPs, we can take those IPs back as well. So if you have an allow list, it's probably not. We're working on that managed IPs, but for now, it's probably not a good use case for those. And other than that, it's a seamless transition. It basically is as simple as I type in here, confirm. I did it, and then all that warm up I talked about, you don't need to do that because you've already warmed those IPs up. They already have capacity. So when you transition to managed, what you're doing now is just saying, I don't need to do. I'll just send it. I'll send my email to that. If you have any queuing or batching, doesn't matter. Just send it to us. We'll manage it, and then you can monitor it, how it's performing again through those metrics. So it's a really clever and intelligent kind of way of abstracting all of that heavy lifting that you've got to do away from the customer, allow the customer to do things that maybe are a little bit more important, and we manage it all for you.
Yeah, I mean, that's what AWS is all about, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, cool. Glenn, anything else you want to add in before we end this segment?
No, I was really that. Again, thanks for having me, and thanks for people tuning in, particularly those late in the evening. And this really is, if you like, if you send email, you talked earlier about SES is an often underlooked service, and in a way that's a bit of a compliment to us, because we're just there. We work, it works, it does things. It's ubiquitous, it's in the background, but it performs, it scales, it does everything for you. So in a way that's a good thing, but it's also a bad thing, because but we released a lot of really, really interesting features around the world of email. And email is growing. It's the whole, it's probably the Mark Twain thing, where the rumors of my death are exaggerated. We've seen social, we've seen messaging, we've seen SMS, but really email is just growing and growing, and our customers are growing and growing. It is ubiquitous. It's a high ROI. Some of the features we've released Virtual Deliverability Manager, a really cool feature around, gives you really deep insights into how your email is performing, gives you advice on how to improve your email sending. Should really check that out. It's, if you send email and you're responsible for it, I would check that out. Again, dedicated IPs. You can try these out. You can turn them on. You can watch them perform. Again, you only pay for usage. You can turn it off if it's not for you. But I would suggest that people really who care about reaching their recipient's inbox try these features out.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Glenn, for joining us. And
cheers.
Let's come back when the next SES function is released.
Oh, we will. We have more exciting things in the pipeline. Trust me.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, Glenn.
So, thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Jordan. Thanks,
Yeah.
Jasmine. Appreciate it.